health officials are confirming what many have feared. Swine flu is in Canada. It's a disease that has killed 86 people in Mexico and infected others in parts of the United States and New Zealand. 6 cases have been confirmed in Canada, 4 in Nova Scotia, 2 others in British Columbia. Federal health officials have just held a press conference to give an update on the latest efforts to deal with this disease. They say the cases in Canada and the U.S. are mild, but they're cautioning Canadians not to take it for granted.
We know that this H1N1 swine virus is circulating, is causing illness in the United States and here, as well as in Mexico. What we don't really know is how much of that is related to the severe respiratory illnesses in the U.S. And as you can imagine, there are many differences. And even in a regular flu outbreak, you will see great variation between communities and even within communities for different people. So as we see more cases, just like in any other influenza year, you're right, there will be a percentage of cases with much more severe illness and potentially the risk of dying. And so nobody should take any of this, simply because we're having milder cases, nobody should take this for granted in any way.
The CBC's Rosemary Barton was at that news conference that just wrapped up in Ottawa, and she joins us now. So, Rosemary, how are Canadian health officials responding to the outbreak?
Well, Andrew, they're doing a number of different things. I mean, I think from the get-go, though, the Health Minister Leona Aglukkaq made it very clear that although these are the first confirmed cases that we're hearing about today, they will certainly not be the last. So Canadians should prepare to hear more about swine flu and about other people that have been infected. Of course, they're monitoring the situation very closely, and they say that they've already moved to do a variety of things. First of all, the lab in Winnipeg that has been used by Mexican officials and U.S. officials to do some testing is already working very hard to come up with a vaccine that would deal with this particular strain of swine flu. So that is already happening. The federal government is also already speaking to a number of pharmaceutical companies about whether or not they would be able to start mass producing this vaccine if they were able to come up with it very quickly. It's much the same process as they do on an annual basis with the regular flu vaccine, except it would be targeted for this particular measure. And also, of course, the government is working hard to make sure it's communicating all necessary information to Canadians and talking to them about much of the same things we've been hearing all day, those preventative measures that Canadians can take. This flu right now looks very much like any other type of flu: coughing, nausea, sore muscles. So they're suggesting that it may be that in some circumstances, but if you've traveled from Mexico recently, you should go and see your doctor immediately to make sure that it doesn't get more severe. They point out that the cases in Canada so far have been mild, so there's no reason for Canadians to be overly alarmed, but they also say that you don't want to take this for granted. This is serious, and it's causing serious problems, as we know, in other parts of the world.
And Rosemary, given that it is serious, why hasn't Canada declared a health emergency like the U.S. has?
Well, Andrew, the way the U.S., the reason the U.S. had to do that had to do with allowing access to various tests and access to antivirals that the U.S. has a completely different system. So Canadian officials explained it to us today, saying that Canada, in fact, does not need to take that step in order to make sure that Canadians have access to antivirals. Let me just say that they were confident today that Canada has a reserve large enough to deal with any kind of outbreak. There are 55 million doses of antivirals in a pool of medication for across the country, and as well there's a national bank of 12 million more doses. So they say that Canada is well prepared and indeed has learned a lot of lessons since the SARS outbreak. And medical officials also pointed out, Andrew, that it's a good reminder that there are about 4,000 people who die from the flu in Canada on an annual basis, and that's of course just the regular flu. So people obviously want Canadians to be careful, notice any strange symptoms that they may have, but they say that Canada is well prepared for this should it move into the pandemic area.
Yeah, that 4,000 figure really putting it into perspective so that people don't panic. Okay, Rosemary, thanks very much. The CBC's Rosemary Barton in Ottawa.